I hope you guys have read the handouts that were given to you on marks. In these 2 days, I hope you have read 25 pages. Okay. So, I hope it was easy, very easy for you guys to understand everything that was written in there. Okay. And therefore, there is no need to read anything in this world. Okay. Only and only handouts. See, let me be very honest with you, okay, and not talk like a teacher. Because I'm a student also, so at times I'll speak very honestly without thinking that I'm a teacher. Okay. So please bear with me, okay? The fact is, because I'm concerned about you only, okay? And my concern may manifest different form as well at times. क्या हो गया ये? Sir, some mismatch in handout and class note, for example, objective and subjective dimensions of class. Objective and subjective dimension of class. Mismatch hai. What is the mismatch? What is mentioned in the handouts? Class in itself is objective. Class for itself. For. Marx says social group becomes class for itself only when it attains true consciousness. And that is subjective. Handout 1 is correct. हाँ जो भी है मैं ही तो बनाता हूँ हैंडआउट. जो हैंडआउट में लिखा है वही सही है. ओके चलो. So no need to read anything, and I'll suggest you also when to read something else. Okay. And the reason why I'm not suggesting you anything is because I know that no book is made for UPSC sociology. Okay, every book is made for higher education, and what is relevant to us is quite different from what is given in those books. Those books are good for understanding, but if understanding you have already built up, no need to read the book. No need to read the same thing from books because you may get confused. Okay. In class, I said opposite. हाँ हो सकता है. Slip of tongue हो जाता है यार कभी कभी. Okay. कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है. But now you know कि चलो ये सही है. Whenever there is any confusion ना, हालांकि ऐसा it will happen very rarely that I have said something and something else is given in the handout. It will happen very rarely. I think 1 out of 100. So whenever that happens, consider handout version as the final one. Sometimes it may also happen that what I have said in the class may be right, but what is given in the handout may be wrong. That will also be very rare occasion. In that case, you are always free to check on Google which of them would be right. Okay. मेरे से पूछने की जरूरत नहीं, गूगल पे चेक कर लिया करो, करेक्ट कर लिया करो. Now, so since you have covered both of the things, now our next scholar, Max Weber. Okay. Most important scholar of all the scholars. Right in the middle of the great ones. From Durkheim to Mead. Right in the middle is Max Weber. Okay. And the last European scholar that you are going to study. After this, we are going to start off with American. sociology. Okay. So far in European sociology, we have read Durkheim and Marx. Frenchman, German. Okay. In the French circle, you have also come across names like Auguste Comte. Okay. Auguste Comte. Of course, not in chronological order. Durkheim obviously came later. Okay. Durkheim, Comte, Saint-Simon. Okay. D. Bonnard, D. Meister. The fact is, when you look into French sociology, it is highly it is highly unified. What all of them, these may be individual figures who are very different from one another, but as far as the ideology is concerned, to all of them, what is sacred is the idea of traditional values. That is one sacred that has united all of them and which helped them establish a moral community called as church. And the name of church is French sociology. All of them were conservatives, and therefore conservatism is sacred to them. Okay. And around them, they have formed a moral community called as French sociology. French sociology in itself is highly conservative. Okay. And I don't need to tell you why now, because explained already those things many times. Being conservative, they were always concerned about traditional values and institutions. Traditional values and institutions. And they were trying to figure out what in the modern era is going to act like the similar glue which the traditional values used to act like in the pre-industrial era. Okay. Out of all these people were extremely conservative, radical conservative, basically. Okay. Despised modernity, abhorred modern values. Okay. On the other hand, we have this man, Marx, German man. Okay. And before talking about this man, if you remember, since they were concerned about institutions that could glue the order once again, and that is also one of the reasons they were called as structural functionalists. Structural functionalists, because they were concerned about maintenance of the system. Maintenance of the system. Okay. They believed system is no longer maintained. What is the modern glue which is going to maintain the system once again? Structural functionalist. Okay. And being structural functionalist, whatever institutions they studied, the only objective was to check in what way that institution had contributed to the maintenance of system. Okay, and what could be now the alternative in the modern era that would be playing the similar role? Marx, on the other hand, German scholar, he was highly radical and he believed that institutions that we have or that we had, whatever institutions we had or we have today, have not been the institutions or values, so called. The institutions and values have not been, never been in the history of society functional for the system. Functional for the system. Rather, institutions and values have been functional for the ruling class. Have been functional for the ruling class, not for the system as a whole. Do not confuse, Marx says, what ruling class wants and the desire of ruling class with the systematic needs of society. Okay. This is what the aim of Marx was, to enlighten us on the fact that whatever we see around us is largely functioning for securing the interest of the bourgeoisie. In the history of societies, these institutions have been functional for the masters, for the lords, for the bourgeoisie. Okay, and not functional for the oppressed. And that is why Marxism believes in turning the world upside down. Okay, to bring the oppressed into the regime, distribute the goods, the resources, and to have a classless society. Okay, this is what we call as justice. This is the idea of Marxian version of justice. Okay, not like Rawls' version of justice. Rawls' version is highly peaceful and based on liberal principles. Okay. Now, the problem is, unlike French sociology, which is highly unified, all of them speaking similar things, German sociology was never unified, and German sociology had witnessed a split. Okay, Marxist on the one side. On the other side, we had Weber and Weberians. Okay, there was a split in German sociology. So, unlike French sociology, which was highly unified, German sociology witnessed split. Marxism and Weberianism. Okay, so we had Marx on one hand and Weber on other. Now, who is going to win out of these two? The war between these two scholars is considered as one of the greatest intellectual academic war in the history of social sciences. Okay. Because their ideas culminated into what we today take for granted. Many of those ideas are the gift of these scholars that we take for granted. Okay. Briefly, I'll talk about the dispute between these two. But before that, I would like to tell you about the life history of Weber, the background of Weber. Okay. Max Weber, 1864 to 1920. चैट विंडो जो है थोड़ा टाइट कर देते हैं. You know, if Napoleon Bonaparte was a world historical figure in the eyes of Hegel, Max Weber is deemed as world sociological figure in the pages of world history. This man was born in Erfurt, the eastern side of Germany. Okay, Erfurt. And he belonged to a middle class family. His father, whose name was Max Senior, he was called as Max Senior. His father had one brother. Senior Weber, I would call him. Senior Weber had one brother. Okay. And these were 4 or 5 children. Okay. The father of Weber and their brothers, 4 or 5 children. But finally, what happened was, and they were running a, textile factory, textile business these people had. And it was believed that, Senior Weber would not be able to sustain himself because factory was catering to needs of many people, and ultimately the father of Senior Weber told him, okay, even the father of Senior Weber told him that you should move out and learn some new trade, because if you are here with us along with your brothers, then you may die very soon because we would not be able to sustain you. So you should learn a new trade. Okay. So Senior Weber learned some trade. What was that one thing that Senior Weber learned? He earned a degree in law. Okay. And he became a civil servant and a politician. So Senior Weber became a civil servant and politician. When he became politician, civil servant, at that point of time, he was in the eastern side of Germany, Erfurt. Okay. And the problem was the wife. Okay. The wife of Senior Weber, the lady he got married to, she was very wonderful, very smart woman, very devout Calvinist Protestant. Okay. And when Max Weber was born, so Senior Weber and his wife, that is the mother of Weber, these people were planning, what are we going to do with this man, Weber? And remember, Weber was one of the 8 sons and daughters. 8 sons and daughters they were. Okay. Weber ultimately got admission in University of Heidelberg. His father was very influential person by the time because he was civil servant. Okay, so he got admission in University of Heidelberg. In the University of Heidelberg, on the lines of his father, Max Weber pursued degree in law. Not just in law, he also pursued a degree in history. And he had 2 PhDs, 2 dissertations, okay, both on law and history. Now, after his studies, he got married to a lady, Marianne Weber. Marianne Weber. Okay, and Marianne Weber was second cousin of Max Weber only. Okay, so basically he got married to his second cousin. Why it happened, this is not our concern. Okay, But many things are actually related to whatever work he has done is a reflection of his personal history. Okay, whatever things he witnessed in his life are very much visible in the works also. No, Marianne Weber was also very wonderful lady. Okay. Somehow Max Weber could not consume this marriage. Okay. And he fell in love with a girl. Okay. Ellen Richthofen. He fell in love with, it was extramarital affair. Okay. And that was the first time Weber had erotic experience. And after that experience, most of the works were published. Okay. But not talking about those things, if I restrict myself purely to his academic journey, okay, these things are going parallelly. In 1897, Weber suffered mental breakdown. 1897. Why did he suffer this mental breakdown? It is generally believed that it was the time of summer holidays in University of Heidelberg, where he was pursuing law and history degree. Okay. And during the summer holidays, he came back to his home. He met his father, his mother. His mother said, I would like to visit you. I would like to visit you in the Heidelberg. Okay. And the father of Weber said, you will not go anywhere. Okay. If you go anywhere, who will cook food for me? Who will cook breakfast for me? And Max Weber said, no, father, you should not be speaking to mother like this. This was the first time Max Weber said no to his father. Because throughout his life, he was inspired by his father. He pursued law because his father was a lawyer, a bureaucrat, famous politician. He was following the footsteps of his father only until that day, 1897 summers, when he came to his home and shouted on his father. For the first time, he said no. And he could say no only because Freud said once that initially you would have affection towards your mother until you would overcome the Oedipus complex and become a rebel. And he rebelled against his father. Okay, initially he was very much, what do I say? In the early life, basically, he was very much inspired by his father, but not after that. Okay. The moment he expressed his anger towards his father, within 2 or 3 months of that, his father died. Okay. And he cursed himself forever after that. He believed, had it not been for that dispute which took place on that one day when he came back to his home, his father would have probably survived. Somehow he cursed himself all throughout his life after that. Okay. And because of that curse only, he suffered this mental breakdown. And he was literally not writing anything, not teaching anything to the students. And for 5 great years, Weber was absent in the public sphere for 5 years until he recovered one fine day in 1902. And his wife, Marianne Weber, all throughout these 5 years, Marianne Weber was there with him. And Marianne Weber took very good care of him. In these 5 years, Weber was staring out on himself. He could not do anything, he could not read, write anything. And remember also, until then, he had not produced anything. 1902 aa chuka hai. He is only 18 years left. He is only 18 years short of dying. Only 18 years are left in his lifespan. And once he recovered from the mental breakdown, the first work that he did was Protestant Ethic. The first major work, I would say, Protestant Ethic. Okay, which is there in your syllabus. Protestant Ethics and Spirit of Capitalism. And right after the recovery from mental breakdown, he is writing Protestant Ethics. And that is why he writes in the very first page of that beautiful book, okay, that is considered as one of the best sellers in sociology, dedicated to my mother. Okay, because in those 5 years, he was going through that agony, that shock, okay, the way his father spoke to his mother on that day, all through 5 years, he was thinking about that, and that is why the first publication that he did, on the first page of that, he dedicated this book to his mother. Okay. Now, this book received lot of criticism also. Okay, what is the content of the book is something I'll tell you later on. Okay, it is too early for me to tell you the content of the book. Just remember one thing. If I were to summarize this book in one line, I would say that according to Weber, capitalism developed because of Protestants. This is a summary. Okay, very brief, oversimplified summary. Oversimplified. Okay, capitalism developed because of Protestants. Who are Protestants? ये सवाल होता है. प्रोटेस्टेंट्स कौन है? अब इसी चीज के लिए मैं अभी बात करना ही नहीं चाहता हूं इसके ऊपर. ओके. So let me come back to his other academic works. In 1913, he published Study on World Religions. What are the world religions that he studied? He studied Hinduism. Okay. Islam. Buddhism. Confucianism. Okay. So many world religions he studied. Judaism. Okay. Judaism. He did not study only two religions, Sikhism and Jainism. बाकी सब उसने study किए. Okay. Sikhism and Judaism he did not study. Although his followers studied these religions afterwards, he himself never studied those religions. And through this work, he established why capitalism did not develop in the areas where we have Hinduism, in the areas where we have Islam. Okay, because his book had received lot of criticism. कि भाई तुम कह रहे हो कैपिटलिज्म प्रोटेस्टेंट से आया तो हम क्या कर रहे थे फिर? Okay. So he academically proved those people wrong, that you were doing nothing basically. Okay, and I have explained in each chapter, you can read what Hinduism was doing, what is Islam all about, what is Buddhism all about, and why these people could not develop capitalism the way it got developed in England by the Protestants. Okay, so this book was a reply to his critique. In 19, and this book, took him a lot of time to finish. Okay, obviously because he was studying major world religions. So it took him 6 years. Okay, 6 years to complete this book. 1919. अब 1 साल रह गया, ठीक है. You know, this was the time 1905 to 1920. This was the time when World War was going on. Okay, पूरा वो environment develop हो चुका था World War का, and Max Weber was a great supporter of World War. Great supporter of World War. Okay, just like Ashoka. Just like Ashoka initially was great supporter of killing. Okay, until he was convinced by his priest, okay, that we should not be involved in physical conquest. We should rather be involved in cultural conquest. Okay. Bheri ghosh nahi, dham ghosh. Something like that happened to Max Weber also. Initially, he was dire supporter of World War. But after some point of time, he believed when he witnessed so many killings, millions of people died in World War. So he developed inward orientation. And despite that, he was great supporter of German. He was a pure nationalist, German nationalist. Okay. And you know, when he saw that Germany lost World War, he cried. It was a nationalism in him that made him cry. Okay. And when he cried, he was so much in shock, and he was really wanting someone to come to power once again and reunite and restore the great German empire or the civilization. Okay. A Marxist scholar, George Lucas, he believes that when I read Max Weber, during the time of the World War, I feel that he is in dire need of a charismatic authority to gain power. Charismatic authority in the sense someone who could regain the power and unite the Germany once again. And you know, when I'll teach you authority, the concept of authority which is there in your syllabus, it talks about different types of authorities. One of them is charismatic authority. Charismatic authority is someone which I don't want to talk about right now because again वो एक lecture है उसके ऊपर, ठीक है. But he was really in the need of someone who could bring back German once again, the same German solidarity. Okay. Now, after the defeat of Germany in the World War, he was invited as one of the delegates of the Versailles Treaty. Okay, Versailles Treaty that was signed after the war. He was one of the delegates. And he is that person who inserted Article 48 into the Weimar Constitution, German Constitution, which was later used by Hitler to gain power in 1933. There is a great correlation between Weber and Hitler. There are many historians who say that if Weber was not there, Hitler would not have been there. Okay. But ये तो कुछ ऐसी बातें होती हैं which can never be proven wrong. Pseudo-scientific बातें हैं. Correlation. These are correlations, not direct cause effect. Okay. ये तो वही बात होगी कि ऑस्ट्रिया के किंग को गोली नहीं मारी होती तो वर्ल्ड वॉर नहीं हुआ होता. ओके. ये तो बड़ी वैसी ऐसी वेग सी बातें होती हैं which cannot be proven wrong. Anyhow, the last year 1919 was the year when he was working on his book Economy and Society. Economy and Society, the opus magnum. Economy and Society. In this book, a clear departure from Marxism is visible. Okay, throughout his work you will feel that he's speaking to the ghost of Marx without mentioning the name of Marx. He is talking about those things which are very much, which seem very much like a critique to Marx only. Okay, but something that he is not mentioning explicitly. That is why people say that seems he's speaking to ghost of Marx. Okay. Now, in his book, he says that history of all society, and whatever he said was in German. Okay. So people who are translating his work in English also are very much aware of Marx on the one hand. So interpretation of the Germany into English might have also have influenced them to think that he is speaking to a ghost of Marx, but nonetheless, the fact is, Weber believes that history of our society has not been history of the subsequent changes in the mode of production, but it has been the changes in the mode of domination. Domination. Okay, the mode of domination. History is about mode of domination. History has been about changes in the modes of domination. Domination. And here comes his theory on power authority, which is there in your syllabus. Power and authority. Domination. Okay, the forms of domination have changed in histories. Okay. Just to give you one example, in 1500, the domination was highly based on religion. In domination, in the sense, the power structures who are going to rule over the people was based on religion. Okay. Today, it is not based on religion world over. It is based on constitution. Okay. It is based on constitution, legal rules. Okay. Not on traditional values of religion. Legal rules of constitution. Okay. The rational rules. And this shows the change in mode of domination. And this is what history has been about. Okay. And we are moving more towards that rule-based, law-based things only. Okay. And we are moving more and more towards that. ऐसा नहीं है कि religion, we know that yes, religious order and the domination based on religion, you may still find in few pockets in the world, but the larger trend is towards rationalization, that the form of domination will now be rule based. Arab Spring हुआ. Before Arab Spring, do you guys know Arab Spring? कोई ऐसा है जिसको नहीं पता? Arab Spring. Arab Spring important event है. You should definitely read this. Whosoever do not know about Arab, मैं लिख देता हूँ क्या है ये. Arab Spring. अच्छा, have you guys covered world history? ऐसा तो नहीं मैं अज्यूम करते जा रहा हूँ कि तुम्हें पता है सब. नहीं पढ़ा है तो फिर जरूर पढ़ो यार. मतलब मेरे बस में होता है, आई वुड हैव डेफिनेटली टॉट यू वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री, बट फिर मैं अपनी पहचान खो देता. मैं टीचर सोशियोलॉजी का हूँ. ओके. यही रीजन है मैं सोशल इश्यूज तक नहीं पढ़ाता जो जीएस में होता है. चीप लगता है मेरे को बड़ा सोशल इश्यूज, क्योंकि सोशियोलॉजी इज नॉट सोशल इश्यूज. सोशल इश्यूज तो बहुत ही सस्ता सा और गंदा सा टॉपिक है. ठीक है, उसका कोई लिंक नहीं है सोशियोलॉजी के साथ. तो दैट इज व्हाई व्हेन पीपल वुड टेल मी कि टीच सोशल इश्यूज, मेरे को लगता है, फिर मैं उनको बोलता हूँ तुम्हें पता भी है सोशियोलॉजी क्या है? बस वो सोशल देख लिया तो बोल दिया तुम पढ़ा दो सोशल इश्यूज. ऐसे थोड़ा ना होता है. कोई बात नहीं. World history is very important. Not so important for UPSC. I mean, in UPSC, you would not find them asking very specific questions on world history. Especially if you look into these topics of world history that they have asked since last 7 years, because 2013 only, in 2013 only, they introduced world history in our syllabus. So you will see that the weightage given to world history has declined. Largely, it has declined. Okay. The kind of questions that they're asking from world history are also very straightforward. They do not expect you to dive deeper into the realm of world history and specific events. Okay. So what you can do at max is that you should have, in fact, I would suggest you one better idea. Okay, how to read world history. We should, definitely read 4, 5, 6 major events in world history. One is French Revolution, of course you know this. Industrial Revolution, of course you know this. Okay. Third is World War I. Okay. Fourth is this Russian Revolution. Okay. Fifth is World War II. And sixth is Chinese Revolution. और है क्या वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री में? कुछ और है ही नहीं, बाकी सब कुछ भी नहीं है. These are the 6 events. If you have strong hold over these 6 events, they asked about a question. They asked a question, new economic policy. In the world history, they asked one question, new economic policy. ये new economic policy कौन लेके आया था? ये रशियन रेवोल्यूशन से ही तो रिलेटेड है. If you have hold over these 6 topics, one or the other topic, sometimes they might ask some question from African history, all those things. कोई बात नहीं है, कोई बात नहीं. We also have to see how much of cost benefit ratio इतना है नहीं. It's better to watch documentaries. Okay, trust me. You watch documentaries on World War, Russian Revolution and Chinese Revolution. Watch 5, 6 documentaries, not only one. Watch 5, 6 documentaries. After watching 5, 6 documentaries, then read 2 or 3 kunji type material. Okay, 2-3 पेज का जो कुंजी या जैसे आता है मार्केट में वो पढ़ लो डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज के बाद. फिर आपको स्टोरीज you would have gained the story already in your mind, and then you would simply have keywords on the pages, 2 page. वो आपको पता चल जाएगा अच्छा हाँ ये है. ठीक है, that is the best method, and world history can be done in hardly in 3 days. Okay, बस डॉक्यूमेंट्री देखो और ये पेज पकड़ लो कहीं से. ठीक है, चलो. Arab Spring basically was a wave. It was like a wave that struck Middle East nations. Okay, wave that had struck Middle East nations 2011 onwards. Okay, it started with small revolts. Okay, started with one individual who was selling fruits. Okay, and that fruit seller was stopped by a policeman. कहाँ जा रहे हो तुम? पैसा दो. ठीक है, वहां this fruit seller did not pay money to that policeman, and policeman slapped him. Ultimately, fruit seller died because of that slap. Okay, then people revolted. ये क्या चल रहा है? ठीक है, पुलिस इतनी करप्ट है कि एक 10 रुपए के लिए उसने मार दिया फ्रूट सेलर को. ठीक है, वहां से अरब स्प्रिंग शुरू होता है. बहुत ही एकदम सिंपल जो चीज है वो बता रहा हूं आपको मैं. Ultimately, what happened was that it was believed that the corrupt administration is the result of monarchies. Okay, monarchies can never prevent the administration to become corrupt. Monarchy as a system actually encourage people to centralize power, and when power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Okay, और इसी से आता है इकोनॉमिक करप्शन भी. क्योंकि monarchs have absolute power. And the whole Arab Spring was against monarchical system, and that established democracies in the Middle East. It was fueled by, it was sponsored by, generally it is believed it was sponsored by America, because America is one bloc which always wanted to spread democracy all over the world along with capitalism. Okay, so Arab Spring was one event which led to establishment of democracy in the Middle Eastern states. Not all the Middle Eastern states converted into democracy, some are still monarchical, but the larger trend, as Weber says, is towards rationalization. Okay, if you ever get a clip, a movie clip of 2 minutes, which is showing you the world history in fast forward fashion, you will see that monarchical blocks are vanishing, democratic blocks are emerging. Okay, so this is the larger trend towards rationalization that Max Weber is talking about. In 1920, he died of pneumonia. Okay, he was 56, I think. कितना बना ये? 36, हाँ 56. He was 56 when he died. If we had clue shots the way we have today, he would not have died. He would have survived. Okay. Anyhow, let me now start with Max Weber's topics that we have in our syllabus. First, we have social action. Okay. Second, we have ideal type. Third is authority. Fourth is Protestant ethics. And spirit of capitalism. Okay. These are the topics in our syllabus. One more, fifth, bureaucracy. Bureaucracy, and all the topics are connected to each other. All the topics are connected to each other. कोई break नहीं है. ये continuous flow में चलेंगे सारे topics. Okay. Just to give you brief idea about these concepts, remember, Marx told us, and as you know now, that there was a split in German sociology between Weber and Marx. So whatever is Weber writing is against, perceived as something written against Marx. Okay. So when Weber writes theory of social action, it is perceived as a critique to economic action. Marx talks about revolution coming out of economic oppression. Okay. And Weber believes, although these are those things which Weber has not explicitly written, but Weber believes that action is not only economic in nature, actions are social also, and we have to understand the meanings attached to any phenomena by the individuals to understand why those laws, so-called historical laws, are not working the way prophets believe they would work. So when he is writing like this, again ऐसा लगता है सीधा सीधा लगता है बोल ही दो, मार्क्स का नाम क्यों नहीं बोल रहे हो, ठीक है. So his theory of social action was a critique to economic action. Okay, Marx himself never coined this term economic action, but it is Weber's interpretation of Marx's theory of revolution. Okay, that it is economic action. देखो बात सीधी सी है, क्या होता है, if you are oppressed, why you are not bringing revolution? Because individuals are not puppets. It is when Marx believes that revolution is inevitable, he is simply ignoring individuals. Do you remember this thing? When Marx believed revolution is inevitable, और कैपिटलिज्म is doomed to collapse, जब वो ऐसा बोल रहा होता है, capitalism is doomed to collapse. When Marx is saying anything like this, is he not ignoring individuals? Is he not giving too much focus on laws of social world, as if individuals do not control their destiny? They are always following, they are following laws. ऐसा लगता है ना, साउंड करता ही है. Okay. So when Marx is speaking like this, revolution inevitable, capitalism is doomed to collapse. So Weber asked him, do you consider individuals as fool? Okay. Do you really think social world operates according to laws? Okay, just because you believe that in the history of world there was class struggle between master slaves, lord serfs. Okay. This made you think capitalism is also doomed to collapse. What form of reasoning is this? This is what mode of reasoning? Inductive. Okay. Studied few societies and generalized history of all societies. Hitherto has been history of class struggle. All societies. 3 societies पढ़ा उसने, सिर्फ 3. ठीक है, और आगे उसने all लगा दिया. Okay. So Weber says, when you say revolution is inevitable, you are ignoring. Marx is ignoring. Marx is ignorant of the meanings and motives of individuals. Marx is ignorant of the meanings and motives of individuals. What is the meaning of meanings and motives here? If I am a worker, if I'm a worker of the factory, I'm oppressed, I'm exploited, let us assume. Okay. Still, I'm not bringing revolution. Why? Because work means something to me. Work means something to me. Work is not just a source of income for me. Work is a source of pride for me. Okay. Work is a source of status for me. Okay. Work is not just a source of income. It is source of status, pride, glory. It is source of the most important statement. It is the source of my obligation towards the holy. Okay, now this is very subjective thing which I'll talk about later on. Okay, but when you work, when I work, I feel like I'm worshipping. Work is worship. याद है ऐसा कुछ पढ़ा है बचपन में? ओके, डू यू रिमेम्बर? वर्क इज वर्शिप, कुछ किसी ने बकवास करी है जिंदगी में कभी? ओके, द नेम ऑफ दैट पर्सन हु फ्रेज्ड दिस वर्क इज वर्शिप? Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin, who was also a Protestant. Okay. So when I'm working, work is not just a source of income for me. It is source of pride, glory, status, and my obligation towards holy. Okay. It is worship for me. And when you worship your work, would you ever bring revolt against those people who have employed you to work? Those people are not just your bosses. Those people are to you like priest. These are those priests who have let you worship in the factory. And work is worship. Okay. How would you bring revolt against the priests? They are not just bourgeoisie. Okay, they are not just the exploiters or your bosses, or not just the owner of the means of production. This is highly economic reductionist approach to look at the world. World is not just all about economy. Economy is just a part of society. Okay. In the realm of work, it is the religion that manifests itself. Something that is hidden. Do you know that we celebrate in India, we celebrate Vishwakarma Puja? विश्वकर्मा पूजा, किसी को पता है इस चीज के बारे में? हाँ, विश्वकर्मा. तो व्हाट इज विश्वकर्मा पूजा? विश्वकर्मा, हमारा एक हॉस्टल भी था बीएचयू में. विश्वकर्मा जो होता है, बेसिकली विश्वकर्मा is the god of machines in India. Okay, considered as god of machines, Lord Vishwakarma. Okay, so during Vishwakarma Puja, all the factories are closed, machine work is shut down. Okay, on that day machines are worshipped. Okay, ये हमारा इंडिया में होता है, मशीन्स की हम वर्शिप करते हैं उस दिन, विश्वकर्मा पूजा के दिन. ओके, सो समहाउ ये तो फैक्ट है. फिर अच्छा, why do we worship machine? Why do we worship machine? Have you ever seen when you buy a car, you photo a nariyal on the sir of the car? ठीक है, नारियल फोड़ते हो ना? Why do we do that? When we buy scooty, ठीक है, we buy that orange saffron color का sacred thread, okay, and tie that on the handle of the scooty. We also write that ऐसा कुछ बनाते हैं हम, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, स्वास्तिका का जो साइन होता है. ओके, ऐसा कुछ बनाते हैं. When we buy car, what we do? In the car, in the platform of the car, we install. Okay, अब दूसरा वर्ड मेरे को नहीं आ रहा है इस टाइम. ठीक है, install in the sense we put in place the मूर्ति of हनुमान, छोटा सा. Okay, और an idol of Shiv, Parvati. Okay, which is hanging by that mirror. ऊपर जो लटका होता है शीशा, वहां पे नीचे हम रखते हैं कुछ. Okay. Why do we do this? When we open computers, कंप्यूटर पे वॉलपेपर है लॉर्ड शिवा का. ओके, गणेश का, गणपति का वॉलपेपर है. So we celebrate, we worship machines. Whenever you buy something, the first thing that you do is to worship. Okay. And when you worship your work or when you worship machines, how can you bring revolution? How can you overthrow those people who gave you employment to work on these machines? Unless we understand the meanings and motivation of the people, how people look at work, we cannot theorize blindly about laws that will make inevitable the fall of capitalism. ऐसा नहीं होता है. Quranic verses, yeah, must be there. I do not know about Quranic verses. Must be there. In every religion there are some verses and some beliefs about these things. Okay. So this is something that Marx ignored. Therefore Marx purely reduced the world. Marx reduced the world into economic world. Marx reduced the world into economic world. As if whatever we do for money. ऐसा नहीं होता है. We know very well that as long as factories are running, so long the productivity is higher. So long the productivity is higher at the higher end. Still we celebrate Vishwakarma Puja and we shut down factories. That shows we are not concerned about paisa every time. Okay. Marx reduced the world into economic world. And this is also one of the reasons why he is called as economic reductionist or economic determinist. Okay. There are many reasons to call him economic determinist. One of the reason is this. In the mode of production theory, what did you see? Basically, what is the base? The base of the world is economic. Infrastructure is economic. Rest everything is superstructure. And whatever we see in the superstructure is there only to justify the conditions in the economic base. So, economy is the main part of society according to Marx, and that is why he is called as economic determinist. Okay. But Weber comes, and through his social action theory, he critiqued this economic action. This is all economic action. Okay, this was critiqued by social action theory, critique to economic action. Okay, so this is the background of his theory, social action. Now, Weber was against positivism. This is something that you know already from unit 2. Okay, and Marxism is positivist philosophy. Okay, reducing the behavior to laws. We are driven by laws. We will eventually overthrow. Now you know the meaning of positivism. अब जाकर आएगा समझ. अब यही वो पॉइंट है. उस टाइम तो चाहे मैं जो कर लेता समझा ही नहीं सकता था. ठीक है, क्योंकि ये पढ़ा ही नहीं था तब तक. but now you would connect the dots. Flashback इसी को बोलते हैं, फिर पीछे जाते दिमाग में, अच्छा 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 तभी इसलिए वो पढ़ा था. इसलिए now if you read unit 1 and 2, अब एक अलग अंडरस्टैंडिंग से पढ़ोगे. Okay. So Weber was against positivism and he was also against subjectivism. Subjectivism क्या होता है मैं बताता हूं. Okay. Positivism and subjectivism. See, when Weber says that when he reads Marx, he believes that Marx has reduced the evolution into laws, ignoring the meanings and motives of individuals. Okay. And thereby, positivist, according to Weber, presents history as driven by laws. ये तो करता है positivist. History is driven by laws. Right? History is driven by laws according to positivist. Therefore, according to positivist, history is science. समझे कि नहीं? History is science. According to positivists. So, if I am a positivist scholar, if someone asks me difference between history and sociology, ठीक है? History and sociology. अब इसके ऊपर आएंगे, हम बात करेंगे इन सब चीजों के ऊपर भी. But remember, to a positivist scholar, history is science. Because history is driven by laws. And how come history is driven by laws? If you remember Marx, and not just Marx, if you also remember Spencer or Auguste Comte, these are those people who are talking about laws of social world, evolution of ideas following laws. Okay. So therefore, history is driven by laws and history is scientific. And Weber is against this thing. Weber does not like this. These kind of बातें जो हैं, Weber do not like. Okay. On the other hand, we have a category called as subjectivist. Subjectivists जो होते हैं, these are those people who do not talk about laws of history, they rather study specific events in history. Okay, they do not deal with laws. They would deal with specific events. In the sense, they would study reign of terror, specifically, पूरा डिटेल में पढ़ेंगे उसको, उसके ऊपर 10 किताब लिखेंगे. Okay, they will study Haitian revolution in deep details, mentioning the name of slaves also and their wives also. उनके बच्चे उस टाइम क्या कर रहे थे जब वो मास्टर की सुन रहा था. Deep details एकदम, narratives, stories. These are those people who are not concerned about laws. They are simply reproducing the events as it is. Okay. Subjectivists are those people who reduce history to specific events. Specific events and details. For example, events which led to French Revolution. ऐसे specific events which led to French Revolution. Specific events which led to the fall of Berlin Wall. ठीक है, ये वो लोग होते हैं. So they are not talking about laws. They are detailing specific events. Okay. Now, Weber equally hates these kind of people. And Weber believes that historians have, and non-historians, even psychologists, philosophers, everybody in this world have committed same mistake. Okay. Even political scientists, philosophers, sociologists also, historians also, psychologists also, legal theoreticians also, all of those scholars have committed many mistakes. Okay. And now is the time to study in a purely academic fashion. Okay. In the sense to understand the reality and not to explain or to judge reality or not to give laws about reality. To understand reality. Okay. Because what Marx talks about कैपिटलिज्म, मैं आपको सीधा सा एक एग्जांपल देता हूं. आई टॉट यू ऑगस्ट कॉम्ट सोशल ऑर्डर सोशल डिसऑर्डर. आई टॉट यू डर्कहाइम मैकेनिकल सॉलिडरिटी ऑर्गेनिक सॉलिडरिटी. Do you really think these are really applicable in the world? Do you really think that you can see mechanical solidarity? Literally, you can have mechanical solidarity. Do you really think there is something like normal division of labor? पता नहीं कहाँ है ये सब क्या होता है? These are theoretical, highly abstract concepts which have no relevance. Okay, no relevance in the reality. There is a great mismatch between the theoretical constructs given by scholars and the empirical reality that is lying before us. Okay. And therefore, Weber was against these two extremes. These two are extremes. एक तो लॉ बना देता है और दूसरा बहुत ही डिटेल में चल जाता है. दोनों से हम कुछ नहीं सीख सकते. Both cannot teach us anything. I'm not interested in specific details of king. Okay. Neither I am interested in law because laws do not exist. So both of us are not giving the holistic reality. So kya kare? Weber said, we need to change the orientation of academics. Okay. ओरिएंटेशन ही बदल दो एकेडमिक्स का. एंड इन द परस्यूट ऑफ चेंजिंग द ओरिएंटेशन ऑफ एकेडमिक्स he developed a concept called as ideal type, which is also one concept given in your syllabus. Ideal type. Okay. What is the meaning of ideal type is something I don't want to go into. Okay. ये आपको बता ही दूंगा मैं, नहीं तो लेक्चर शुरू हो जाएगा फिर. अभी आई जस्ट वांट टू गिव यू फर्स्ट ओवरव्यू. ओके, हिज थ्योरी ऑफ हिज थ्योरीज. आइडियल टाइप. सो रिमेंबर व्हाई आइडियल टाइप वाज गिवन, व्हाई सोशल एक्शन थ्योरी वाज गिवन बाय वेबर. नाउ यू नो. ओके, ब्रीफली आइडिया आपको है थोड़ा बहुत. व्हाई आइडियल टाइप एज अ कॉन्सेप्ट इज गिवन, नाउ आई विल टेल यू. ओके, आई विल नॉट टेल यू व्हाट इज आइडियल टाइप, बट व्हाई आइडियल टाइप as a theory or a concept given by Weber. Because Weber believes that when historian deals with specific events in the history, historian misses out on a trend or a pattern in the seemingly different, specific or unique events. See, for example, events may seem to be very different from one another across the world, but there is a pattern. There is a pattern in those events which historians do not speak about. If you remember, I taught you, a pattern on revolution. Theda Skocpol. Okay, French Revolution may be different from American, may be different from Chinese, may be different from Russian, from French. Okay, but there is a pattern. Okay. Incapacitation of the old regime and the domestic revolt, internal and external, both threats are there. So it is a pattern which historians do not study. They only study specific events, American, French. Okay, they are not able to form a pattern or a analogy or similarity, find a similarity or parallels in those seemingly different events. So Weber believed historians tend to reduce reality into highly specific event. Okay, let me write it here. Historians tend to reduce history to highly specific events. Without looking for a pattern across the seemingly different realities, seemingly different events. Okay, this is what Weber is saying, that historians ये गलती करते हैं. They tend to reduce history to highly specific events without looking for a pattern. Okay. On the other hand, there are second kind of historians जो laws बना देते हैं. ठीक है. There are some other historians also who make laws out of reality. They start predicting. Okay. On the other hand, there is another set of historian. There is another set of historian which make laws out of reality. Okay, which is again the first issue with historian is that they go too narrow, and the second issue with historian is that they go too broad. लॉस बना देते हैं. दोनों इशू हैं, एक्सट्रीम्स हैं. these are extremes. Okay, and none of them reflect the reality only because they are extremes. Both of them are extremes. Okay, now remember this term. These people who make laws, these historians who make laws, okay, out of reality, who give generalized laws, these historians are known as, and this is very old term, बहुत ही पुराने terms हैं, ये सब use नहीं होते हैं, but still these historians are known as nomothetic. Nomothetic. Because when you start making laws out of history, you're trying to project history as science driven by scientific laws. This is what nomothetic is. Okay, science of history. On the other hand, the first one, which had reduced historical events to very narrow realities, discrete, dispersed, not so organized, without pattern, only events are occurring, seems like narrative reproduced by an author. Okay, that is ideographic. The first one is ideographic. Okay. Now, ideal type is a concept Ideal type is basically a concept that helps to resolve this dilemma. That helps to resolve this dilemma. Okay, what is the dilemma? डिलेमे का मतलब क्या होता है? डिलेमा का मतलब होता है कंफ्यूजन, फंस गए, आगे कुआं पीछे खाई, डिलेमा. ओके, if you make laws, that's very broad. Okay, that those laws may not be applicable, may not be checked. If you do not find a pattern, only interested in looking at unique events, again it seems like a story without any pattern. So these are two extremes. And Weber believed that one method that I have developed, ideal type, can help us to understand the reality better and will help us to understand the reality better. In a better fashion. And will help us to understand the reality in a better fashion. Okay. Now, the third concept given in your syllabus is authority. Authority. Okay. Authority. What do we mean by authority? What do we mean by authority? All these theoretical overviews will help you to understand and now to compare scholars with each other. Okay. Authority. For example, power derived from position. Yes, very good. Suppose I call some IPS officer, let us assume, okay, and ask him to pass on one order. Okay, pass on one order. Okay, उसके पास कुछ ऑर्डर आया है, कोई अप्रूवल आया है, एंड आई आस्क हिम कि उस ऑर्डर जो तुम्हारे पास आया है उसको पास कर दो. ओके, why would he follow my advice, or why would he listen to me? I am no one. Okay, but if an IAS officer calls him, ठीक है, वो कर दो जो भी बोला है इसने निशात ने, ठीक है, आईपीएस बोलेगा हाँ ठीक है सर अभी कर देता हूँ. So that IAS officer has authority. Okay, तब वो आईपीएस ये नहीं बोलेगा मेरा रैंक इस आदमी से ज्यादा ऊपर का था, जब यूपीएससी जब मैंने दिया था तो आई हैड बेटर रैंक, व्हाई शुड आई लिसन टू आईएएस ऑफिसर? I was rank 1 and still I chose IPS. This guy, rank 73, became IAS and मेरे ऊपर, ये सब नहीं चलेगा, वो तुम्हारी विश थी, ब्यूरोक्रेसी वैसी ही रहेगी, ठीक है. So that shows that IAS has authority, but that does not mean that IPS does not have authority. मैं सिर्फ एग्जांपल दे रहा हूं. Okay, authority could be derived from informal position. हाँ बिल्कुल 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 हो सकता है. Cut to the scene. First scene. I called IPS officer. ठीक है. And आई सेड वो ऑर्डर पास कर दो, काइंडली पास ऑन दैट ऑर्डर. आईपीएस इज सेइंग नो. ठीक है. और उसके बाद मैं दरवाजा खोलता हूँ, ओपन द डोर एंड देन आई शो हिम पिस्टल. कर रहे हो कि नहीं? तब वो कहा हाँ अभी करता हूँ, अभी करता हूँ. अब ये देखो, सेम पर्सन बट नाउ आई हैव पिस्टल. कर रहे हो कि नहीं? ठीक है. नाउ दिस इज इनफॉर्मल पोजीशन. दिस इज व्हाट टेररिस्ट डू. ओके. Authority is basically nothing but chance of a man to obey the command. Chance of a man to obey the command. Did IPS officer obey my command? No, because I am not authority. But when this same IPS officer got phone from IAS, he obeyed the command. That shows IAS has authority. Therefore, authority is nothing but chance of a man to obey the command. Do not confuse authority with power. Power is something else. Power is very different thing. Authority is very different thing. Okay, मैं बताऊंगा कैसे. Authority is chance of a man or men to obey the command. Simple. If your father tells you that जहां पे भी हो, wherever you are, come back to home as soon as possible within half an hour. Okay, वो अथॉरिटी है कि नहीं? जहां पे भी हो आधे घंटे में आ जाओ. नहीं तो जहां पे भी हो वहीं रह जाना. ठीक है. Either you come within half an hour or you stay wherever you are forever. Okay, that is authority. He is not IAS officer or IPS officer, but still he possesses authority. Okay. And that is not informal authority. Fully formal. In the sense, he is not saying these things to me at gunpoint. Without gunpoint, सिर्फ बात करके ही. And I got convinced, yes, I'm coming within half an hour. I'm आ रहा हूँ बस रास्ते में हूँ 5 मिनट में. Okay. So my father also has authority. That IPS officer also has authority. दोनों के पास अथॉरिटी है. Suppose you are confused which optional to take. Imagine, go back to those days when you were thinking which option should I take. Okay. Your father told you political science ले लो, it will help you. Okay. Sociology काफी young है ना, it's very young, तो ज्यादा लोग जानते नहीं हैं. Hardly 100 years old. Okay. Political science ले लो, it will help you in general studies. Or you may also take public administration, it will help you in bureaucracy. Okay. But you went to YouTube and watched some videos. Okay. Videos by some toppers. Okay. And those toppers gave you few advices. Okay. Finally, the list that you had in your mind about 6 or 7 options. Now that list had got narrowed down. Okay, now you are confused between two options, sociology or political science. Okay, now you are not confused between 6 7 subjects, only 2 subjects. Okay, now what did you do? You asked one of your friend, one of your close friend. Okay, he told you take sociology, it's very easy. You asked one of your friend once again, he told you take political science, it's very easy. Now both of them are saying both are easy. अब क्या करें? So finally you met someone, a teacher. Okay, you met a teacher of political science. Okay, or you met a teacher of sociology. Now if you got convinced by the teacher of sociology, that means that teacher was charismatic. Charismatic in the sense you get influenced very easily. You got influenced very easily. Imagine like this only. You had a political science teacher and you had a sociology teacher. You chose sociology. And somehow that teacher who is teaching you sociology is neither your father, okay, nor he is an officer, and still he is able to make you obey the command or make you convince yourself or to get convinced. Who is this person? This is a charismatic authority. Okay, for example, Modi, he is a charismatic authority. Okay, you do not know Modi, but when you listen to him you get convinced कि जो बोल रहा है सही कह रहा होगा. Okay, you do not know Modi, but you get convinced easily because the conviction with which he speaks somehow makes you convinced कि यार ये डेवलप करा देगा, हमें 5 साल में विकास करा ही देगा. ठीक है, that person in the language of Max Weber is charismatic authority. Your father, remember this, your father is also authority. Your teacher is also authority. The IAS officer is also authority. You obey the command of IAS officer also. You obey the command of teacher also. You obey the command of your father also. But these authorities are different. Okay. This authority you listen to because of respect and tradition. You pay respect to your father, or you listen to your father, you obey his command because of the respect that you have for your father and because he is your father. ठीक है, and also because यही हमारे tradition, यही हमारे संस्कार हैं. These are our values. Okay, we cannot start fight with our father. We cannot start fighting. जो बोलेंगे हमें मानना है. These are our traditional values. Why did you listen to teacher? Because of, now reasons could be anything. Maybe because of the way, or not the way, maybe because of because of the extraordinary qualities. To use the word given by Max Weber. Okay, that person possesses extraordinary qualities. The qualities which are not generally possessed by others, that made you obey him. IAS officer, what made you obey him? The rules, legal rules, constitution. Okay, you have obeyed three different persons for three different reasons, but the one thing that is common is obedience, command. Okay, obedience is there, command is there, reasons may be different. Now one is ट्रेडिशनल अथॉरिटी, ये सिर्फ ओवरव्यू है. वन इज ट्रेडिशनल अथॉरिटी, सेकंड इज कैरिज्मेटिक अथॉरिटी, एंड थर्ड इज लीगल रैशनल अथॉरिटी. Okay, is power greater than authority? Power greater than authority? No, I mean there is no lesser or greater than. ये maths तो नहीं है नूतन. How do we measure greater or lesser? Power, authority, both. Just remember this thing. Power and authority are different things. They are not similar. So if they are not similar, we cannot have a greater or lesser relation wala things. Power gives authority. No. Power does not give authority. Power कहां से? Power से थोड़ा ना authority आती है. एक बात बताओ. Let us not think theoretically or in a bookish manner. प्रैक्टिकली सोचो. मैक्स वेबर प्रैक्टिकल आदमी है. मैक्स वेबर इज प्रैक्टिकल आदमी. ओके, अथॉरिटी, यू नो, इट इज ऑल अबाउट ओबेयंस. ओके, चांस ऑफ अ मैन टू मेक यू ओबे हिज कमांड, दैट इज अथॉरिटी. ओके, एंड व्हाट इज पावर? सपोज यू डू नॉट ओबे मी. Suppose you do not obey me. Okay, suppose I say, if you remember, I called that IPS officer. He did not listen to me. पहली बार में तो सुना ही नहीं उसने मेरे को. Okay, then I opened the door. He did not know कि मैं बाहर ही खड़ा हूं. Okay, I opened the door and showed him pistol. Now this is what power is. This is what power is. Okay, this was power. Now this power that I showed him did not have authority. Okay, in the sense, why would he listen to me? I'm not in a position of authority, but somehow when I showed him that gun, now he is listening to me. But this is not authority per se. This is also authority, by the way, but this is illegitimate authority. Illegitimate. Okay, अभी कंफ्यूज मत हो. अभी पावर और अभी से तुम सवाल पूछने लग गए. अभी तो पढ़ाया भी नहीं है मैंने. ठीक है, सिंपल. लेट अस हैव वेरी सिंपल थिंग. पावर इज व्हेन यू एक्सरसाइज योर विल. जब तुम अपनी मर्जी चलाते हो. व्हेन यू एक्सरसाइज योर विल इवन अगेंस्ट द रेजिस्टेंस ऑफ अदर्स. जब आप अपनी चलाओ दूसरों के रेजिस्टेंस के बावजूद भी, जब तुम अपनी चलवा लो, दैट इज व्हाट पावर इज. ओके, इन ए क्लास ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स, सपोज इफ आई से, इफ यू डू नॉट कंप्लीट असाइनमेंट, यू विल नॉट कम टू माई क्लास. ओके, इवन अगेंस्ट द रेजिस्टेंस ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स को मन नहीं है असाइनमेंट्स करने का, पढ़ने का, ठीक है, बट मैंने चलवा ली अपनी, इवन अगेंस्ट द रेजिस्टेंस ऑफ अदर्स, you exercise your will. That is what power is. Now this power that I could exercise is coming from authority. But remember, power does not necessarily flow from the authority. Power sometimes also flows from the barrel of gun. Okay? Flows from the barrel of gun also. Maoist philosophy. Okay? Anyhow, इस पे बाद में करेंगे बात. Now, just to see, okay, just to see how much have you understood the overview of his works. Since now you know that there are three types of authority. If I ask you, where would you situate bureaucracy? Bureaucracy, where would you situate? Is it a traditional authority? Is it charismatic authority? Or is it legal rational authority? Okay. So bureaucracy, which is given in your syllabus, is nothing but a legal rational authority that we are going to study. Okay. Legal rational authority that we are going to study. But remember one thing. When I asked you, which of these authorities would you find in bureaucracy? Although you said legal rational authority, but remember, Max Weber was never ever interested in such kind of studies. He believed, एक बात बताओ मेरे को, सिंपल सी बात है, if an IAS officer comes here, इधर यहीं आ जाए अभी, okay, I would not be listening to him, or I would not be paying attention to his words because he is IAS officer only. Okay, not just because of this reason. Somehow, I would start finding charisma in the way he speaks. Okay, the way he carries himself. Somehow he would seem to be a very charismatic personality to me. It would be very easy for him to convince me even in something that is wrong technically. Okay. He possessed the charismatic authority. Okay. And also because I know that we should follow these officers, we should listen to him, we should obey him. This is our traditional values. These are our traditional values that we should listen to them. Okay, so you would not be able to tell me exactly that bureaucrat is a legal rational authority. To me, a bureaucrat is a charismatic authority, also a traditional authority, and also a legal rational authority. So that shows that reality, what you see, what you feel, and the reality that those people project in their books are different. And Weber wanted to capture this reality only. He knew that reality is highly complex, okay, very muddy. And when you conceptualize, for example, when I asked you bureaucracy कहाँ fit होएगा, सीधा दिमाग वहां गया legal rational. वो बोलता है कि जब आप स्टूडेंट से ऐसे बात करते हो ना, when you have conversation with students like this, okay, you are actually reducing the social world into maths, okay, ये फॉर्मूला कहाँ फिट होगा, इधर ये फिट हो गया, okay, ऐसा होता नहीं. सोशल वर्ल्ड इज हाईली कॉम्प्लेक्स. Okay, this is one thing that we should not be doing according to Max Weber. ठीक है. अब एक बात बताओ, ये रुको चेक करने दो, इसका नाम क्या था. ये एक आदमी है, देहरादून का है, आईएएस ऑफिसर, मैं उसका नाम भूल गया हूँ. अपनी वीडियोस डालते रहता है यूट्यूब पे. दीपक रावत. जो दीपक रावत है, ठीक है, दीपक रावत, ये क्या करते हैं? क्या करते हैं ये बेसिकली? When I watch his videos, so somehow he seems to me very charismatic authority. I am not simply, yes, of course, because he is IAS officer, so that is why I clicked on that thumbnail. देखा मैंने इतने व्यूज क्यों हैं भाई, चेक किया मैंने. And then after clicking on that thumbnail, I watched the video for 5 minutes. Somehow मैं देखता रहा उस बंदे को कि the way he is speaking, okay, he has some charisma. He has some charisma. Okay, only because he's IAS officer is not enough reason for me to convince myself to watch that video for 10 long minutes. Okay, कुछ extraordinary होना चाहिए. ऐसे तो IAS officer बहुत है, ठीक है. So somehow I found extraordinary qualities in him, and that is why I could see the video for 10 minutes. Okay, although video was for 2 hours, 10 मिनट के बाद मैंने बंद कर दिया. Okay, so but this shows that he had charismatic. He was also charismatic authority. Traditional authority also he is. Traditional authority. Okay, because the fact is that he is a senior in command, okay, in that district, and people believe that we should obey our seniors. Okay, and when you start obeying your seniors, that is what traditional authority is. Okay, so in reality you have all the layers. Reality is not so clear-cut, compartmentalized in concepts. Okay, this is what the idea of Max Weber is. Now, this is what whole theory of Max Weber is all about. What reality is there, what reality they project, and what should we do? Okay, sir, is this known subjective understanding? ये सब छोड़ दो अभी. मैं क्यों why? रांचू why? कहां पढ़ा है, मेरे को सच्ची बताओ, ये लाइन कहां पढ़ी? कोर्स ये लाइन है, बट ये कहां पढ़ी मेरे को ये जानना है. गूगल में किधर? विकिपीडिया? स्क्रॉल कर रहा था. अच्छा, छोड़ो अभी तो पढ़ाया ही नहीं मैंने. Now, let us begin with a topic called as methodology. Methodology. Okay. रिमेंबर methodology का मीनिंग क्या होता है? द मीनिंग ऑफ methodology इज द यूनिक सेट ऑफ मेथड्स which are adopted to approach the reality. Okay, simply unique set of methods to approach the reality. Unique set of methods to approach the reality. Okay. Now, Weber, of course, he had unique set of methods to approach the reality, and one of that method is, if you remember, is ideal type. Is an ideal type. Okay. One of that method is ideal type. Second method is Verstehen. Verstehen. Verstehen, not Verstehen मत बोलना इसको. जैसे Volkswagen बोलते हो तुम, V को फ बोलते हो. ओके, जर्मन है क्योंकि. वैसे ही Verstehen. This is also a methodology to approach the reality by Weber. Okay, Verstehen. Third is causality. Causality. ये तीन मेथडोलॉजीज को समझ लिया तो खत्म वेबर, खत्म. और कुछ है ही नहीं फिर इसके बाद वेबर में. Okay, first we have to understand these. Only then we will talk about social action, then authority, then bureaucracy. पहले ये समझना पड़ेगा. Okay, ये बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है. Only these three: ideal type, Verstehen, and causality. खत्म है फिर वेबर. Okay. चलो. Let us begin with our first concept called as Verstehen. Okay. Then you will understand the later concepts like social action and all those, bureaucracy. In all the concepts, remember, every concept that is mentioned in your syllabus, you would not be able to understand if you do not understand this. Verstehen. Okay. Now, Verstehen literally implies, what is the literal? It is a German word. The literal meaning, English meaning of this word is empathetic understanding. Empathetic understanding. Empathetic understanding in English. Okay. Can someone tell me the difference between empathy and sympathy? किसी को difference मालूम है? Because this is very crucial difference. So did you just come or I missed something? नहीं, अभी आया हूँ, अभी एकदम. What is the difference between empathy and sympathy? Feeling for and feeling with. Empathy means to feel someone else's feeling. Compassion. Okay. When India, suppose India lost a match, cricket match. Okay. India lost cricket match. As ex-cricketer, I would empathize, empathize with the loss. As an audience, I can I have sympathy. Okay, I may even empathize also, but obviously not to such a great extent as an ex-cricketer would empathize. Empathize means because ex-cricketer can empathize because he has been in the shoes of those people at one point of time. Kapil Dev, can empathize with the loss of Indian cricket team against Pakistan. Audience can sympathize. Okay, audience may even empathize, but largely एक तरीका है distinction का. Okay, so empathize simply means empathy simply means to feel the same emotion. To feel the same emotion. Okay, by putting yourself in the shoes of that person. By putting yourself in the shoes of that person. Okay. The spokesperson of Pakistan cricket board, उसका नाम मैं भूल गया हूं. जनरली कुछ ना कुछ वो बोलता है, उसका मैं नाम भूल गया. That person, if India loses the match, he cannot empathize. He will only sympathize with India. My commiserations to you. Okay, and congratulations, Ramiz Raja. Ramiz Raja can sympathize. He cannot empathize because he is not Indian. He cannot feel the same sentiment that we Indians feel when we see India losing against Pakistan. Okay, that is the difference between empathy and sympathy. Now, that is what the ambition of Max Weber is, to empathize with the individuals. Okay, because no scholar has empathized with the individuals. Everybody was involved in making theories, laws, projecting individuals as puppets governed by laws. Auguste Comte said, social order will get restored, equilibrium disturb ho gaya, after some point of time social order will get restored. Okay, individuals का कोई नाम ही नहीं लिया उसने. Did not talk about individuals. Durkheim, the function of religion is to integrate the bonds, is to restore solidarity. Again, not talking about individuals. The function of crime is nothing but crime is the anticipation of morality in the future. Function of punishment is to restore the collective consciousness that has been broken by the act of crime. अरे individuals की नाम ही नहीं ले रहे हैं, बात ही नहीं कर रहे individuals की. Okay, where are individuals in their theories? What are they doing? क्राइम अपने आप हो रहा है, लॉ भी अपने आप जिंदा हो गया, लॉ ने अपने आप क्राइम एक ऑर्गेनिज्म की तरह प्रोजेक्ट किया जा रहा है सोशल वर्ल्ड को. ओके, तो मैक्स वेबर बिलीव्ड that historians, sociologists, philosophers, political scientists, and anthropologists and even psychologists have committed similar mistake. What is that mistake? Ignored the individual individuals, meaning and motives. Simply, individuals' meanings and motives, the meaning they attach, the motive they have towards something. Okay. All these people have committed similar mistakes. Even psychologists. Generally, we read psychology as a science that deals with individual. But psychologists also believe that individuals do not have free will. Free will है ही नहीं. Psychologist, भाई एक बात बताओ. When Sigmund Freud talks about id, ego, superego, Oedipus complex, a male falling in love with mother, determinist है कि नहीं वो? This is what happens. He is also making law. Did he ask me or you that did you ever fall in love with, or was there any sensation like this? No. Projecting individuals as simply puppets governed by laws. This is what laws, these are the laws. Development in the self, development of the individual personality also shaped by laws also. So again, he ignored individuals. Okay. And therefore, to rectify this error, Verstehen was developed. Verstehen was developed. To understand the Ranshu, अब आएगा objective meaning of objective reality. ठीक है, यहां आएगा वो, यहां Verstehen में. ठीक है. To understand the subjective meaning of objective reality. Subjective meaning of objective reality. What is the meaning of this line? The reality that seems to be highly objective cannot be understood if you do not understand the subjective meanings of the individuals. Okay. See, just to give you one example. Capitalism developed in England. Is this objective fact or not? भी तो देखते हैं क्या बोलते हैं ये लोग. Objective fact. Objective fact. देखो वैसे तो ये ऑब्जेक्टिव फैक्ट नहीं है, ठीक है, मैं बताऊंगा क्यों जब मैं आगे पढ़ाऊंगा, बट फिलहाल के लिए हम मान लेते हैं, हम ऐसे बोलते हैं कि इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन डेवलप्ड इन इंग्लैंड. कैपिटलिज्म डेवलप्ड इन इंग्लैंड तो गलत है. ओके. इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन डेवलप्ड इन इंग्लैंड, दिस इज ऑब्जेक्टिव फैक्ट. बट ये जो ऑब्जेक्टिव रियलिटी है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन हैपेंड इन इंग्लैंड, दिस इज ऑब्जेक्टिव रियलिटी. बट what are the subjective meanings? In the sense, why capitalism or why industrial revolution happened in England only? To understand this, what will you have to do? Suppose I ask you one question, very simple question. Why industrial revolution happened in England and not in Africa? Okay. So you know objective reality only. that industrial revolution happened in England, but you do not know the subjective reality, why it happened in England. Okay, you may say raw materials है, वो सब है. अरे raw material तो हर जगह है. raw material हर जगह है. ज्योग्राफी तुम बोलोगे, ज्योग्राफी हर जगह की अच्छी है. ओके, इंडिया से ज्यादा फर्टाइल कोई लैंड ही नहीं है पूरे वर्ल्ड में. बैटल ऑफ पानीपत, इतनी सारी बैटल्स क्यों हुई उसी एरिया में? इतना फर्टाइल लैंड है क्योंकि. ओके, so what is the main reason? We do not understand that generally, and this is what Weber says we should do. Historians ऐसे ही करते हैं, बस वो ऊपर से पढ़ के चले जाते हैं. They do not, historians would never study why industrial revolution happened only in England. Even if they study, they would give only objective reality, ऐसे raw materials present थे ये सब. Okay, so therefore Weber says to rectify this error, Festehen is developed to understand the subjective meanings of objective reality as to why only in England industrial revolution happened. That is subjective meaning. Why industrial revolution happened only in England. And how can we understand this? Through Festehen. Festehen is a method that will give the answer to this question. Okay. ठीक है. Now comes the theory of social action that is given in your syllabus. Okay. Now you will understand this theory. First, let us define social action. Social action is any action that is meaningful, purposive, and oriented to other actor. Remember this definition. Social action is any action that is meaningful, purposive, and oriented to other actor. Other actor in a historical context. In a historical context. Okay. Suppose I give a tight slap to someone. Okay. And by chance you saw me. कि मेरा लड़ाई हो गया किसी के साथ. Okay. So what did you see? You only saw that that person hit me, I hit him back. Okay. This is something that you saw. This was objective reality. But you do not know the subjective meanings. Why, क्यों लड़ाई हुई? Okay. ये तुम्हें नहीं मालूम है. You just know that that person hit me, I hit him back. अच्छा. What did you do? You told your friends कि भाई इसको मैंने देखा, इसका लड़ाई हुई थी बाहर. ठीक है, 2-3 बंदे इसको पीटने आए थे. ओके, 2-3 पर्सन केम टू बीट हिम. ये तुमने अपने दोस्तों को बता दिया, मेरी इज्जत खत्म हो गई. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट डे यू गॉट टू नो कि वो यूट्यूब के लिए हम कर रहे थे, दैट वाज प्लान्ड। ओके, वो एक छोटा सा शॉर्ट बना रहे थे हम, वी वर मेकिंग अ शॉर्ट 5 मिनट शॉर्ट फॉर यूट्यूब, ओके, फॉर सम पर्पस विच यू डू नॉट नो। ओके, उसके पीछे एक पर्पस हिडन है जो हमने ऑब्जेक्टिव रियलिटी सो कॉल्ड, यू थॉट इट इज ऑब्जेक्टिव रियलिटी, इट वाज नॉट ऑब्जेक्टिव। व्हाट यू कुड सी वाज ओनली फाइट बिटवीन this man and the other, but the meaning, it was scripted. Why it was scripted? So many things are hidden in the reality which you do not know, and Faustian is one tool which is used to uncover those realities. Okay, historians do not do this. So basically the fact is that fight between me and those people was social action. Okay, why? Because that action was meaningful, purposive, कुछ उसके पीछे इंटेंशन थी। ओके, एंड इट वाज ओरिएंटेड टू अदर एक्टर in a historical context, oriented to other actor in the sense whatever I did when I slapped him, okay, the slap that I gave on his face was oriented to that person only, right? हवा में नहीं मारा मैंने किसी को, okay, that was oriented to that person, and his slap on my face was also oriented to me. But all these things were done in a historical context. That means 3 or 4 days back we had planned these things, that we will be doing these things in front of that coffee shop in a historical context. Understood? Now Weber says that the job of sociologist is to study social action. This is what the job of a sociologist should be. What is the job of a sociologist according to Durkheim? To study social action or social facts. Okay, to Durkheim the subject matter of sociology is study of social fact, but to Weber the subject matter of sociology is to study social action. So one is giving importance to structures governing individuals. Second, this man Weber is giving importance to the individuals. Okay, the meanings and motives of the individuals. Now suppose, because we need to understand, is every action in the world is social? Suppose I'm sleeping at 3 a.m. ठीक है, I fell off to bed, सो गया मैं 3 बजे रात को, okay, and in the middle of night at 5 a.m. I saw a bad dream. I woke up, okay, very bad dream it was. Now is this a social action? This is not a social action. Okay. Now I woke up at 5 a.m. Everything was filmed. It was planned again. At 3 a.m. okay, I slept off. Camera was recorded. Camera was recording me. Okay. And I knew at 5 a.m. I have to act like as if I have seen a bad dream. Is this a social action? Okay. Acha, but the actors are missing here. ये तो मैं अपने घर पे कर रहा हूं. Is this still a social action? हाँ, because I have audience in my mind. That is why I have installed camera. उसी के उन ऑडियंस के लिए तो कर रहा हूं मैं. ठीक है. तो those people are there in my mind. ऐसा नहीं है कि those people have to be present physically. इसको भी ध्यान रखना है. Okay? Purposive है. Yes, it is purposive. Remember this word only, purposive. Suppose I gave 10 rupees to a beggar. Suppose I give 10 rupees to a beggar. Okay. Suppose I'm in a car and waiting for the red light to turn green. Okay. And there is 5-minute lag between red and green. Okay. I am waiting for the red light to get green, and in the middle of that time, a man comes in, knocks my window, okay, and asks for money. Okay. I did not give him money for the first 1 or 2 minutes, ignored him. Then suddenly, पता नहीं क्या हुआ, I gave him. जब जैसी लाल हरी होने वाली थी, उसी टाइम मैंने दे दिए उसको 2 रुपए. Okay. Is this social action? अब यहां फंसोगे. देखो, यही तो बात है. ठीक है. See, those who think it is not social action. Why they think it is not social action? Because they think it is not purposive. It was reflexive, intuitive, not purposive. Okay. In the last second, I gave 10 rupees to that person. In the last second. Okay. चलो यार, दे दो इसको. When I am doing like this is not social action because you think it is not purposive. Reflexive किया, चलो ठीक है, दे दिया, खत्म किया, साइड हो गए. Okay. But maybe this is also meaningful and purposeful. I mean, these are very subjective things. It is not so easily captured. Okay. Maybe I gave him 10 rupees so that because I was actually going for interview somewhere. So I thought, because he told me, you will get all the success in your life wherever you are going, wherever you will go. So I thought, यार इसको दे देते हैं. Okay, maybe कुछ good luck होगा. ठीक है, blessings मिलेंगी. So finally I gave him 10 rupees to seek blessings. Because I believe whatever he is saying, it may turn out to be true. Because I was going for interview somewhere. So it is social action. Purposeful. Meaningful. Not randomly giving 10 rupees क्योंकि पैसा बहुत है. ऐसा नहीं है. जान के दिया है ताकि blessings मिले. Okay. This is social action. Now, the fact is, what are social actions, what are not social actions depend on the meaning and purpose, whether those meanings and purpose are present or not. In order to decipher there is any meaning or purpose, the other person would have to come in my shoes. That means develop empathetic understanding. An American scholar cannot study my behavior. When I am giving 10 rupees to a beggar, he would not be able to understand. Okay, when you suppose suppose if you are doing something, any cultural, specific socio-historical cultural event that you are involved in, suppose you are writing on paper, the paper by chance fell off, and then you bent down and then you got blessings like this, touch the paper, and an American person is seeing you, he would not be able to understand what are you doing, why did you seek blessing from the paper, why did you touch like this. Okay, so he would not be able to develop empathetic understanding. He cannot empathize with me. He may consider me, or he may reduce me uh, to someone who is an idiot. To him, I may be an idiot Indian religious person, okay, who see religion in everything. This is what Indians are. Okay, they are still religious. They still have those traditional beliefs. Okay, the land of dark. Okay, mystical. This is what the projection of India is largely. Okay. So when even in Hollywood, when you see when India is projected in Hollywood now, okay, I don't know how many of you have seen or observed this. When India is projected in Hollywood movies, India is projected in green color, green, dark green. ये बड़ी बारीक की चीज है, ये ऐसे ध्यान में नहीं आएगी. A dark green film, okay. And on the other hand, when you see American film, very bright, बहुत bright visuals होते हैं. Okay, very मतलब I mean एकदम जैसे कहते हैं OLED डिस्प्ले वैसा वाला. Okay, एकदम गॉगल्स का भी एकदम ब्रांड तुम्हें दिख रहा होगा पूरा इतना शार्प डिस्प्ले. बट व्हेन इंडिया इज प्रोजेक्टेड वेरी डार्क ग्रीन शेड. ओके, दैट इज ओरिएंटल इमेज ऑफ इंडिया, ओरिएंटलिज्म. ओके, मैं बताऊंगा आगे जाके इसे. सो स्लमडॉग मिलियनेयर में यही हुआ था. ओके, एनी हाउ, social action is any action that is meaningful, purposive, oriented to other actor in a historical context. However, to understand social action, the researcher has to put himself or herself in the shoes of other actor, in the shoes of the actor. That means the researcher has to develop empathetic understanding to understand social action. The researcher has to develop empathetic understanding to understand social action. Okay, and of course researcher cannot develop empathetic understanding unless he has iron will. Iron will. Okay, iron will का मतलब क्या होता है मैं बताता हूं. Researcher has to have iron will to understand social action. Iron will. What is the meaning of iron will here? You know, iron will is the will of researcher to shed off his own values and to understand our action from our perspective and not to look down upon us. Okay, he has to shed off his values, whatever values he possesses of India and Indians. Okay, and he has to study Indian action or India as objective reality. Okay, without his own preconceived notions that he has for Indians. And to rid yourself of the preconceived notions is something that Durkheim has also talked about. Okay, in the theory of social fact, but He believed that we should rid ourselves of the preconceived notion to study social fact. And this man is saying we should rid ourselves of the preconceived notion to study social action. Okay. आयरन विल इसी को बोलते हैं. ये आसान काम नहीं है, क्योंकि दिस इज नॉट एन इजी टास्क टू rid yourself of the preconceived notions and to study someone's action in an objective fashion without ridiculing that action. For example, suppose you see two cocks, murge. Okay, you see two cocks fighting with each other. Okay, and then camera zooms out, and then you see those two cocks are involved in fighting. There are two people also who are, who have trained these cocks to fight with each other. This is something that comes out when you zoom out the picture. You now see not only two cocks but also two players who are involved in cockfighting. So when you see this reality, you think, क्या गांव के लोग हैं, पढ़े लिखे कुछ है नहीं, बेचारे पढ़ नहीं पाए, करते क्या हो तुम लोग, पढ़ाई लिखाई कर लेते थोड़ा, इस तरह की. This is how we will understand them. Okay, look down on these people. Okay, but Weber would say this is not what we should do. Iron will has to be there. Researcher has to rid himself of the preconceived notions and study that reality as objective reality. And when you study the objective reality, so-called, the subjective meanings hidden in the objective reality, remember, we guys had a fight, the purpose was something else, but it was not what you thought. Okay, similarly, these people are involved in cockfight, but the purpose is something else which is not known, something that we have to understand. When you would put yourself into the shoes of that person, you would come to know, in the historical context, the cockfight is a symbol of war over status. In that community, cockfight represents symbolic war of status. Who is going to be the leader of the community from now onwards for the next 1 year will be decided by cockfight. So it is not just an act that is illiterate, manifestation of illiteracy or malnourishment or poor health or garibi. Nahi. Something is hidden. The hidden thing is the motive. The motive is to gain power. Something that an American could not comprehend. Okay, to gain power was hidden. Okay, क्या हो गया? एक सेकंड. अच्छा, टाइम हो गया है. ठीक है, तो अब हम कल मिलेंगे. एनी क्वेश्चन? सर, फॉर्मल इनफॉर्मल अथॉरिटी डिफरेंस इज ओनली बिकॉज अभी तो मैंने पढ़ाया ही नहीं है कि पढ़ाए. फॉर्मल इनफॉर्मल अथॉरिटी तो होता भी नहीं है. देयर इज नो वर्ड लाइक फॉर्मल इनफॉर्मल अथॉरिटी. The words are legitimate and illegitimate. Okay, do not Google right now anything, nothing you will understand. Wait कर लो lecture का, patience. Difference between structure and institutions, no difference at all. हमको, हमारे लिए social structure, social institution are one and the same thing. हमको इतना वो सोचना ही नहीं है. Sir, explain subjective meaning of objective reality once. Subjective meaning of objective reality यही तो explain किया मैंने. भाई ऑब्जेक्टिव रियलिटी क्या था? व्हाट वाज ऑब्जेक्टिव रियलिटी? आई गॉट टाइट स्लैप, दैट पर्सन ऑल्सो गॉट टाइट स्लैप, बट व्हाट इज द सब्जेक्टिव मीनिंग? व्हाई इट ऑल हैपेंड? दैट इज सब्जेक्टिव मीनिंग ऑफ द ऑब्जेक्टिव रियलिटी. एनी अदर क्वेश्चन? Weber was again. Kanish Kumar, Weber was against subjectivism, but sir, the subjectivism itself is object. ये सब छोड़ो कनिष्क यार, फिलोसोफर क्यों बन जाते हैं लोग? सब्जेक्टिविज्म देखो, पॉजिटिविज्म क्या है? Positivism is the study of laws, development of laws of social world. What is subjectivism? Study of unique historical events. In the first part, in the pursuit of finding out laws, you are missing out on unique essence of realities. In the second part, in the pursuit of finding or studying unique events, you are missing out on commonalities or a pattern. And that is why both the approaches are extreme approaches. Both the approaches are not enlightening us on anything. That is why he rejected both of them. So the question was, Weber was against subjectivism, but sir, the itself is objective. कैसे? Subjectivism itself is objective कैसे? From Pranshu. Sir, you said ideal type help us to understand the reality in a better way. Does that mean it brings closer to objectivity? Yes, yes, very nice. It brings closer to objectivity only. Okay, closer to objectivity. It will not tell us objective reality. It will only bring us closer to reality. We can approximate reality. We cannot be determinist or absolute about reality, just like natural scientists are. ये सब मैं आगे कल बताऊंगा. Okay, in natural science you have A led to B. In social science, A may lead to B. Probability is there. We cannot be deterministic like Marx, that capitalism is doomed to collapse, just like previous modes of production, inductive reasoning, scientific theory, scientific socialism. Okay, it may or it may not. Why it did not bring revolution is something that we should study. Why it brought revolution in some places, why those revolutions failed is something we need to understand. Okay. Sir, you said ये तो हो गया. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Tarunesh Maurya, how would we differentiate between which action is social and which one is not, as in case of giving money to beggars? हाँ, यही है, यही बात है. देखो, जहां भी मीनिंग पर्पसफुल होएगा, if there is no purpose, there is no meaning. Something which is also very subjective because it depends on who is interpreting. इसके भी कई problems हैं. There are many criticism to this approach also. Okay. But as far as possible, one should be understanding the hidden world. The subjective meanings is something, the realm of subjectivity has to be unleashed. We cannot reduce the reality to be ignorant or projection of something nonsensical. Okay. Chaitra, how do we know if researcher interpreted the meanings and motives correctly? Yes, Chaitra. We can never know this. We can never know whether what researcher interpreted is correct or not. And the fact is, there is no correct thing also in reality. I mean, this is something that you will come to know eventually, that there is no correct or incorrect in social world. Okay, there are only web of meanings. The world is nothing web of meanings. There is no correct or incorrect here. Okay, for example, when you read newspaper, okay, when you read any criticism, you cannot say this criticism is correct or incorrect. That is only perspective. Okay, what Modi speaks at the podium is not correct or incorrect. That is perspective only. Okay, what Britishers did to India is not correct or incorrect. That is perspective only. Some people would celebrate if Britishers had not come, we would not have gotten modernized. Some people would abuse that they need to pay reparations. Rishi Tharoor. There is no correct, incorrect. Correct, incorrect ka mindset chhod do. Sir, is positivism and idiographic study same? Positivism and idiographic study same नहीं. मैंने क्या बोला? नोमोथेटिक है वो जो लॉस की कोशिश करते हैं, लॉस ढूंढने की कोशिश करते हैं हिस्ट्री के अंदर, वो नोमोथेटिक हैं. तो पॉजिटिविज्म इज क्लोज टू नोमोथेटिक. हिस्ट्री टू अ पॉजिटिविस्ट स्कॉलर इज ऑल अबाउट लॉज, दैट इज व्हाट नोमोथेटिक, भूल ही जाओ नोमोथेटिक, गलती हो गई। मैं इसलिए ना ये सब चीजें ज्यादा बोलता ही नहीं, क्योंकि इररिलेवेंट है, मुझे मालूम है ना, मुझे मालूम है ये चीजें इररिलेवेंट है, ये हमें एग्जाम में कोई हेल्प नहीं करेंगी, इसको भूल जाओ। प्रांशु गॉट इट, थैंक यू सर। आतिका थैंक यू सर। शिवम गर्ग थैंक यू। नितिन चौरसिया, डिड मार्क्स राइट समथिंग अबाउट इंडिया? हाँ बिल्कुल, मार्क्स हैज रिटन मैनी थिंग अबाउट इंडिया, and he has also coined a separate mode of production, Asiatic mode of production for India and China, but that theory is now not accepted anywhere in the world. Asiatic mode of production as a theory has been rejected, completely rejected by Marx himself. किसी और ने भी नहीं, उसने खुद ही बोल दिया मत पढ़ना इसको, गलती से लिख दिया मैंने, उस दिन लाइट नहीं थी, कुछ काम नहीं था करने को मेरे पास, इसलिए मैं लिख रहा था, कल अगले दिन रियलाइज हुआ तब तक प्रिंट हो चुके थे कागज, किसी ने पढ़ लिए, तो प्लीज उसको भूल जाओ। ऐसी गलतियां इंसान से होती हैं, कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है। क्या तरह, यस सर थैंक यू। सृष्टि थैंक यू। चलो ओके बाय।